gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors, episode 329. Woo. As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by resident old bastard, Chris Saturn.
Hello.
Saturn, we have housekeeping.
We do.
Which is that first up, Guy is back from his vacation, so he's going to be on the after party
Following this
after
show.
the conclusion of the show. I don't know why I can't speak tonight. Also, right. I've been quite sick all week.
Yeah, you have.
And so I'm on the mend, but my throat's not great, and I'm pretty dried out and raspy and gross. So if I make any gross noises,
that sounds like the
show,
perfect combination for a podcast.
It's just gonna be great. So if I make any gross noises on the show or whatever, or I'm already a pretty like nasally person. Like I just always have like snot. But if you hear more of that than usual.
You took me slightly off guard because you didn't hit quite the same pitch you normally hit when you did the number. and like my brain was still processing, oh, right, he's getting over being sick. And it caused me to completely forget how to handle housekeeping.
What's funny is I feel like we always have this shit and we mention it before the show and whatever, but then it like never...
Nothing comes from it, yeah.
Yeah, people, I had no idea.
Yeah, once we get past the opening here, then no one recognizes it whatsoever. Yeah.
A while back, someone was like, "Are y'all still doing remote?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, I could never tell." I was
That's
like,
good.
"Oh, well, great then."
I don't know if we should thank our setup or if we should thank Pablo for that.
I probably both.
Yeah,
we should probably thank both quite a bit. My week, I got the N64 controller, the new Nintendo Switch Online N64 controller, and I have experienced the Nintendo 64 on the Nintendo Switch. It's funny, I fired up Mario 64 because I was like, all right, let's test the lag. I've played tons of Mario 64, so I feel like I'll notice that the most.
Right.
Because the media and social media is already whipped up into a frenzy about how tremendously bad the N64 emulation is.
Well, I've heard from most people that give it like a more than a 2-sentence review. They're like, for most people, this won't matter. If you are a perfectionist, you will notice the lag.
Now, that said, I've heard the online is terrible, and that is kind of the key feature of Nintendo Switch Online. Yeah. So, credit where credit is due. Those people are correct. If it is as shitty as it seems like it is online. That said, I fired up Mario 64 and I played it for a little bit and I was like, man, I don't know, it feels fine. It's pretty cool to get to play Mario 64 on my Switch though. And then I was like, wait a minute. I already had
you have that.
Shit.
Yeah. And it's a slightly improved version of it.
Yeah.
Now, I have heard that there's some issues with like fog knot rendering in the emulation for N64.
I'll say this: it looks like emulation, if that makes sense. For people that haven't maybe played an N64, like a real one, or maybe haven't played one since it was a thing. The N64 it's got like intentional layers of butt ugliness added at a hardware level.
Right. Yeah. It's got that Vaseline filter basically built in. And
so seeing really cleaned up N64 is not only kind of weird the first time, but it's also wrong, right? It's not supposed to look that good. Right. You know what I mean? Like you could argue that like technically like the NES and SNES at their pure signal level are supposed to look good. Like I could see the argument, but N64 like they did intentionally say, no, we're going to make this look slightly worse on purpose.
Yeah, they fudged it a little.
So it does have that emulation look to it.
Yeah.
For sure. And I did notice some like in Mario 64 in the intro scene, I noticed Lakitu's eyeballs stuck in the door of the castle right before he like appeared in front of me. You know, I'm guessing because when they programmed it, they had to have him somewhere in the scene. So they like put him behind the door. Just stuff like that I'm pretty sure I would not have seen on a regular N64.
Yeah.
And I did play some N64 today. I played Ocarina of Time on my actual N64 via, I think, Composite.
Yeah. That's
just to
the
kind
best
of like
quality picture.
Just I mean, with the N64, does it matter? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I got the HDMI mod for it. Oh, how's it look? Still bad. Still real bad. So,
I at least use S-Video on it.
I might have it on S-Video. I don't know. I think I downgraded it to composite because one of my S-Video cables broke and I only had one, so I put it on my Super Nintendo. although I don't keep a Super Nintendo hooked up, so it could be on S-Video now. I'm not totally sure. But yeah, it feels fine to me. I played Star Fox. I played Mario Kart. It feels fine.
Nice.
It's not like amazing. The controller's pretty nice for like if you like the N64 controller.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my daughter likes it a lot.
That's good.
Because it fits a little kid hand pretty good. I'll give them credit there.
Yeah, those 3 grips are all pretty thin.
And let me tell you, the button layout is easy for a 5-year-old to parse too, because I hand her like a regular modern controller, and she's like, there's so many buttons, I don't even know. This is like, well, there's the 2 big main buttons, and you got to press those. Right. And then there's these yellow ones, and really that's kind of it, because you can't even access the left shoulder button. It might as well not exist, right?
Right.
The D-pad's completely out of your hand's purview.
Unless you grow a third hand.
You got a Z trigger, you got an A and a B, and you got some arrows. That's really it outside of the stick. Yeah. I will say that until today, I'd forgotten about the ridges around the edges of the N64 stick.
Yeah.
And the GameCube, I believe, has kind of a little octagonal cutout around the stick. Yeah. But the N64 has
very precise, very, very. I'm trying to think of the word. They're very clearly denoted. Yeah.
Yeah. And such that if you're the kind of person to push the stick all the way to the edge, which I am, then when you change directions, you're like, it's like driving a car with an octagonal wheel. You're like slamming into the walls of it. It's like, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
I forgot quite how that was on N64.
And as somebody who sold a ton of used N64s, you could always tell who had owned Mario Party, because all that would have been ground down to just a perfect circle by the time they traded in their system.
But yeah, it's N64. Mm-hmm. It's not my favorite system in the world. I like having it available. I think that's cool. I wish they would give us some kind of roadmap on like what's coming, when can we expect it, like you know what I mean?
How's the Genesis simulation?
Genesis is good. I played Streets of Rage 2 and Sonic 2, and they worked well.
Excellent.
They're Genesis games.
Right. Yeah, I mean, anything can handle that at this point, but still, it's nice.
So yeah, I played those and enjoyed them totally fine.
I'm way more interested in that part than I am in the N64 part. So
when you open up the Genesis thing, it says the Sega thing. It says it,
nice.
Yeah. So that's cool. And they've got a really good selection of Genesis games on there. I was kind of surprised. Phantasy Star 4 is not the one I would pick.
Oh, really?
No, I'd probably go 2 over 4.
I would say 2 is probably the more prolific, but I think 4 is a better game.
Yeah, and then other than that, I mean, it's a good selection of games. And I'd say it's even better than the N64 selection, because N64 it's like a handful of heavy hitters
and then win back.
You got win back. I don't even know what that is. It looks like a weird siphon filter knockoff.
It kind of plays like that.
Oh God!
Only it's first person. It's got cover mechanics way before Gears of War. Mm-hmm. So that means they're really primitive cover mechanics, because that makes it better. And there was a PS2 remake of it that fixes every problem with the N64 version, so I have no idea why someone would play the N64 version.
Oh, that's why the cover looks familiar.
Yeah.
Did it have the same cover with the dude on it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why, because I saw it and I was like, it looks familiar, but I don't know that I've ever even heard of this.
Yeah. You probably saw the PS2 port.
Yeah, that's probably why. Anyway, that's about all I've been playing.
I picked up the Alan Wake remaster, which now that Remedy has confirmed they are going to make some sort of Remedy shared universe between Control and Quantum Break and Alan Wake. They're trying to reintroduce Alan Wake. And I feel like it aged pretty well for being good. Completely linear, completely narrative-focused game. It's aged very well, I think.
Yeah.
The graphics really kind of jarred me at first, because it is a remaster, but it's still using the Xbox 360 version as its base. So all of the polygon models are still Xbox 360 polygon models, but they have fresh new 4K textures on them.
Yeah.
So like you'll have this like really quality looking human model, and then their arm moves, and it's clear that it's like 360 level animation. And or they're
some weird uncanny valley shit.
Right, yeah, like they blink and it's like, no, that's not how humans blink. That you take that shit back right now.
Oh yeah, I remember the blinking in that era of games. It was like those inside eyelids that like lizards have that would just like slide over the eyeballs.
Yeah,
and like, oh no, that's not good.
And seeing that with the new textures and the new HD or 4K backgrounds and everything, it's just off. It's weird. But fortunately, the quality, the acting in the game was excellent back then, and it remains excellent now. And it was nice to pull out, I was mentioning the other day in a private chat, it was nice to be able to pull out a physical strategy guide again, because I still have the guide for the game, and just being able to sit there on the couch using a real paper strategy guide on a game just felt so nice.
I was bitching to you earlier today. This week's game, I was like, man, I wish they still made strategy guides.
I think that was 3 days ago that you said that.
Oh
actually.
My God, my week has been so weird.
Yeah. But it has been fun, and I had forgotten some of the just really dumb, goofy sense of humor the game has.
Yeah.
Because for people who don't know, it's a horror game, but it's not like Resident Evil, zombies, gore, all that stuff. It's more of like a campy Stephen King novel kind of horror. And so all the characters you encounter, well, not all of them, but a lot of the characters end up getting possessed by some evil force or whatever, but they still have part of their humanity in them. So they'll be like chasing you down with pickaxes, but then they say the dumbest shit about their own personal lives while they're doing it. And like I was fighting this one dude, I don't remember what his background story was. I think he was like a hunter or fisherman or some shit. Yeah. And he's like throwing daggers at me, and then he just says, "Omega-3 fatty acids are good for your heart." And it just fucking kills me when I hear that shit. I fucking love it. So just a great sense of humor in the game. So it's really good.
Let's knock out some news.
Did you find some?
Of which there is precious little. There is not a lot going on.
Well, there's been some stuff going on, but none of it's really relevant to us. So
yeah, I mean, certainly the world hasn't stopped. But the last quarter of the year is kind of modern game season,
right?
So not a lot of retro stuff or retro relevant stuff going on right now. Probably the biggest thing is Nintendo 64 on Nintendo Switch Online.
Right, which we already discussed both in this episode and the last one. So
right. First up, Steam bans games that feature cryptocurrencies or NFTs.
I'm fine with that.
Now, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is like you can still depict a cryptocurrency or an NFT. They're banning games that involve the real procurement or trade of crypto.
Correct.
Or NFTs, which makes sense. You don't. I mean, Steam already has to deal with like the fact that there's an entire like CS:GO money laundering market going on for stickers, right?
They only need so many marketplaces running through Steam at any given
they're like,
time.
No, we're good. We're good. So that's fine. Analog announces Analog OS.
Yeah, they had a teaser for the reveal.
Yeah, they announced the announcement.
Right. And then when they announced the thing, it was an OS that will run on the Analog Pocket, and it will basically display like it kind of acts like the Switch's OS does, where when you put in a cart, it adds the game to a menu, and you can look at it on that menu and see its information. And then when you take the cartridge out, it still has that information there, but it won't play until the cart is put back in.
Yeah.
And I think that it had some additional features, but I don't recall what they were, but it felt like a weird thing to make a whole big announcement about.
Yeah, it feels strange. I kind of what it felt, because here's the thing about Analog, and maybe they do this. I don't follow them super close, but to my knowledge, they don't do this, and I kind of wish they did. They don't really do like developer diary type stuff.
Right.
And so this feels like something that would normally be relegated to like, oh, it's our October developer diary.
Right.
This is where we are in our development. This is what's going on. We've got this OS we want to unveil. Like, that seems like the adequate place for that. Not announcing an announcement on Twitter and then announcing that the announcement is that if you were able to pre-order a thing that hasn't been able to be pre-ordered for 6 solid months and they don't have any information about when you're going to be able to pre-order it after it's been delayed, it's going to run this operating system. And you're like, oh, thanks.
Yeah, it is weird. And it feels like it would have made more sense if the announcement had been something like an update for the Pocket or some new information about how the Pocket will operate. That would have made perfect sense. They could have deep dived this thing and everybody would have been on top of it. But just the way it was framed, and also that they're calling it Analog OS, does that mean it's also going to be ported to their other consoles or maybe future consoles? I don't know. It's all very confusing.
So what you're telling me is they reinvented RetroArch and they're calling it Analog OS. Great.
Kinda, except for it doesn't load ROMs. And I don't think it supports save states or any of that either.
Worse RetroArch. Got it. I don't know. I'm not trying to be negative about it, but it's just the whole thing was like, it feels like they were going to announce something and then they were like, oh shit, no, we can't announce that. Announce this. Like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like driving to someone's birthday party and realizing you didn't get them anything and you stop at the gas station. You're like, oh shit.
Gyms.
Yeah. It's a big king size Slim Jim.
Yeah. So it feels less like RetroArch and more like one of those old emulator front ends.
Yeah.
The things that don't actually do the emulation or anything useful itself, but it looks really neat.
There you go. The original 1993 Doom has been ported to Twitter.
Yes. Did you see this?
I mean, I heard about it, but I don't go to Twitter, so...
I don't normally either, but I had to go look at it, and apparently you can just tweet commands at it to control the game.
That's so much worse than I thought. I thought they just meant they got it running like in Twitter's API. Now that you have to tweet commands at it.
That's kind of what it is, but yeah.
No. So basically,
it kind of struck me as Twitch plays Pokemon, but for Doom and on Twitter.
You remember a while back there was that like April Fool's joke? I think it was April Fool's where it was like Alexa now plays Skyrim.
Yeah.
And so it feels like that.
Yeah, a lot like that.
Shoot imp. Oh yeah, this is great.
Hey, these are both Bethesda properties too, this and Skyrim. I wonder if they are just
got some weird kind of marketing going on.
Right?
Hamster, the publisher behind Arcade Archives, has trademarked Console Archives.
And said nothing about it.
Wait, have they ever said anything about anything?
Nope. Well, they said some things before they released some games, but usually by that point, the game is so close to release that it's just a release announcement.
Yeah. Sony is porting 2018's God of War to PC, and I'm excited about this one. I was excited about the last big Sony port, which was Horizon Zero Dawn. I didn't even pick it up. So,
well, they also have officially said that they've opened up a new division called PlayStation PC, which will explicitly publish their games on PC. So that leads me to believe they're taking this more seriously and that less PlayStation games will remain exclusive. However, based on their current track record, they may be exclusive for 2 or 3 years first before they make the jump.
Well, and of course, the internet would have you believe that Sony fans are whipped up into a rage over this. How dare they release? I've not encountered it.
I just keep hearing news articles about how angry they are.
I'm like, where are they angry at?
Right?
I guess this is my thing is if you're trying to like read the emotional content of a situation via Twitter or Facebook, then you are getting a bad read, is my personal experience.
Apparently, the comments on PlayStation's actual announcement on the PlayStation blog was filled with a lot of animosity. But I'm not going to go there. I'm certainly not going to read comments anywhere on the internet.
I imagine only the most level-headed and reasonable of Sony fans are commenting on the official Sony PlayStation blog.
Of course. Naturally.
And that's it. Again, there was not a lot of news.
News.
Let's get into the topic at hand. This week we're talking Metroid Dread.
Yes.
Which is officially retro. It's been out for over a week, so that makes it retro. Yep. This is the first fully original new Metroid game released since 2002 that was surprise announced at E3 2021. So for people who are already getting upset, Samus Returns was, of course, a remake of
right.
Samus Returns
2. The Return of Samus.
Oh, pardon me. I forgot they swapped the they swapped the words.
Moved some words around. Samus Returns remade Return of Samus.
So this is I mean our first new Metroid in the mainline Metroid franchise since Fusion.
Yeah, since
Pretty
Fusion
much.
in 2002. There's been two remakes since then because Zero Mission and Samus Returns have both come out since Fusion.
And of course, this is considering Prime to be a separate,
Right.
franchise.
Yeah, which Nintendo also considers it that. That's why this one is called Metroid 5.
It is weird that they have a 2D and a 3D franchise for Metroid, but they won't do that for Zelda. I don't know why they hate us specifically, but I digress.
Right.
This was developed by Mercury Steam with assistance from Nintendo EPD. It's the same people that did these Samus Returns 3DS game a little while back. They also did the Castlevania.
Mirror of Fate.
Mirror of Fate, that's the one that came out, and it was one of those games that people were like, it's not great, but it's okay.
I completely missed it. I had no idea that it even came out until after the HD remaster of it came out. Yeah. And even then, I just kind of ignored it for a good 3 or 4 years before I finally sat down and gave it a shot.
So it's published worldwide on October 8th, 2021 for the Nintendo Switch. I was very excited by this one.
I like our thoughts in the notes, though, before we actually give our initial impressions, because I had just put in the placeholder text Metroid as my entire first thoughts, and then you came in and put in your first thoughts as Metroid.
Yeah, it's not far off, right? I was very excited for this.
Yeah.
And I might be tipping my hand a little bit already by the way I'm phrasing that. But at the announcement, I was quite excited about this. I like 2D Metroid games. I know that I'm on record as not being the biggest search action game fan in the world.
And for people who are not familiar with that term, that's how we have chosen to refer to the genre as a whole.
Right. But I really do like Metroid games. I like Metroid a lot. I like I'm the guy that like enjoys the story and the lore and the mythos and all the different characters. It's like it's cool to me. It's just cool, So I was quite excited for this. I mean, I pre-ordered the day that it was announced, right? Like later that same day. So I've been hotly anticipating this one.
Yeah, I'm also on record as being a huge fan of all the 2D Metroid games and also the genre in general. I will play pretty much anything that people recommend to me of the search action genre. Mm-hmm. I do want to take this moment to mention that way back when I can't remember if it was when Fusion came out or when Zero Mission came out. Mm-hmm. A guy that I work with spent weeks convincing this new person that just started working there that never played video games before that it was in fact pronounced Metroid. And
did he not see the I?
It didn't matter. We spent like I just didn't interfere with the whole process. I just let him do it, and he was like, "Oh no, it's Metroid." And finally, when it did come out, and somebody came in to buy it, the new person that was working there tried to correct the customer and say, "Actually, it's Metroid."
Yeah,
and it just fucking killed us. It was the greatest day. So I felt the need to share that.
I do want to talk about spoilers. This is for maybe someone that hasn't like played a Metroid since Super Metroid. I wouldn't call it a story-rich franchise, but there is definitely
some story.
There's some story, and some some twists and turns. There is an engaging plot here, so we're going to do our best not to spoil gameplay or story until we get to gameplay and story, at which point obviously we're going to spoil the gameplay and the story
a lot. So and we'll try to denote it when we get to that point as well, so that if you don't want to be spoiled on either the story or even the gameplay elements, like what new features or what new abilities are there, we're going to try to avoid saying any of that. But we will make a point to let you know when it is time to bail out of the episode if you don't want that spoiled.
That said, Saturn, tell me about the development of this game, because when it was first announced, immediately my brother texted me and he was like, "Oh my God, they finally made it. They announced it 1 million years ago."
Right.
So apparently this is not quite as much of a surprise as a lot of us felt it was.
It was definitely a surprise, but it was a different kind of surprise. So the game was originally conceived by Yoshio Sakamoto, who was the designer on the original Metroid. He was the director for Super Fusion and Zero Mission. He was also the scenario writer on Fusion. So
all the good ones.
Yeah. So he was working on the story as a direct sequel to Fusion, which he had also written. So that makes sense. He just wanted to follow up on it, and they had already been kind of plotting it out and figuring out how they were going to do it while they were working on Zero Mission. There was a software list that got leaked back in 2005. That was it was supposedly an internal Nintendo document that was labeled Key DS Games Set to be Announced in the Future. And among the games on it, there were several that did, in fact, get announced. So it was a legit document. But among the list was Metroid Dread. And for years since then, it's been kind of an internet joke. It's like the Duke Nukem Forever of Nintendo games.
Right.
Was Metroid Dread, just because it was something that never really came to be. It was kind of leaked, not officially announced, but never
Now
happened.
The new Metroid Dread is Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah. So far, anyway, it's taken that crown for now. Apparently,
and when that comes out, it'll be Pikmin 4, and we'll just keep going down the line.
Right. Apparently, it's been over 1,000 days since they said they started over development on Prime 4, and they've said nothing at all since then.
Well, I thought they had said no. I'm thinking about Pikmin 4. Yeah. Never mind.
Right. So there was in Metroid Prime 3, there's a note that you can find with the scan visor where it mentions Metroid Project Dread is nearing the final stages of completion. However, the director of Prime 3, Mark Pacini, he said that was purely coincidental.
How?
And that he, in fact, had never even heard of that other Metroid game being developed internally within Nintendo.
How the fuck? I know it's a pretty minor piece of ephemera within the game.
Yeah.
But how does nobody on the Metroid team be like, hey, don't say anything about Dread, because that was that one that got canned. Don't say that.
Well, it hadn't been canned yet at this point.
I guess so. I guess that's true, because this would only be a few years later.
Yeah. However, when Prime 3 was released in Japan, they removed that line because it came out over here in the West first. According to Sakamoto, the development that had started in 2005 basically went nowhere. They saw the hardware on the DS, and it didn't do what they wanted to do, but they did try again in 2008.
I played Metroid Prime Hunters. I know what it can do with Metroid.
Right. It was a 2D Metroid. It was different.
True. That's true.
I mean, there was 3 successful 2D Castlevanias of the same genre, and they worked fine.
Impossible. That's a totally different game.
Oh, right.
It has nothing in common.
Yeah. So they did try again in 2008. I think that's after the DS Castlevanias came out. So maybe they saw that they were being shown up a little bit.
I think we were at least 2 DS Castlevanias in
by that
then.
point.
Possibly 3.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So they got as far as making a demo and showing it to the Nintendo of America staff in 2009. But by this time, the game was no longer being referred to as Metroid Dread. It was a completely unrelated project. We know nothing about the story of that particular project or game design or anything, because nothing ever came from it. It was quietly canceled. Nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
In 2010, IGN had reported that the story for Metroid Dread had been completed before it was canceled, but then also confirmed that the game had been canceled. And there was also an interview that year with Sakamoto where he said that should they want to go back to that idea, they would just have to start over from scratch. Like nothing was salvageable. It was not something they were going to do. And by that point, the early 2010s is when we really started to make fun of the game. That's when it became the joke that it was just that game that was canceled. Nothing would ever come from it. And then several years later, after Mirror of Fate came out, the Castlevania game we talked about earlier, apparently Sakamoto had seen what they had done with it and also heard that they were interested in taking on the Metroid franchise. So he met up with them, and eventually that cooperation became Samus Returns.
It's interesting to me that Mirror of Fate, a game that is not amazingly remembered and wasn't amazingly received.
Yeah, it was very mediocre as far as reception goes.
It kind of felt the same as the console version of the game, which is Castlevania Lords of Shadow, where it came out and everybody's like, yeah, that was okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, Lords of Shadow got a sequel, so it must have done something.
True. I mean, I think it sold okay. It was just everyone was like, yeah, this is pretty great, kind of God of War sort of action game clone sort of thing. Like, and it was the same thing with Mirror of Fate, where people were like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Because I was working in press at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, everyone on our staff was like, yeah, it's
it's Castlevania.
B-. It's a game that wasn't Castlevania. That was part of the problem. Really wasn't. It was about as Castlevania as Lords of Shadow was, if I remember correctly. Which is to say not much. Just funny to me that he was like, yeah, this is the team. This is the team that totally made a Castlevania game that had almost nothing formulaically to do with Castlevania.
In fairness, they were tasked with making a spin-off of Lords of Shadow. That was explicitly what they were told to do.
Like, I don't mean to throw shade at them.
Right.
They did what they did and they had their vision and it was what it was. It's just odd to me. You know what I mean? That they're like,
was
okay,
what got his attention.
It almost feels like, Castlevania's changing genres? Well, we're going to change genres too. Get those guys, bring them in. And then they were like, no, we want to do the regular kind of game. And then he was like, oh, okay, I guess you can remake
that.
You can remake Metroid 2.
Yeah, so according to Sakamoto, he had, though what they ended up doing obviously was remaking Metroid 2, what he was hoping for was that they could take the lead in making new Metroid games. That was he was kind of recruiting them specifically to get them to continue the series and the genre. And when Samus Returns did well, commercially it did fine, critically it did very well. They did get the go ahead to work on the new game. And then they had Sakamoto and his team at NCL. They were in charge of the story, the music, general direction, but Mercury Steam was given more than a little freedom as far as the actual development of the game and its mechanics are concerned. So you do have like the original the composer behind games like Super Metroid didn't compose the music for the new one, but he did supervise the composition. So the guys at NCL were involved. Unfortunately, in recent weeks, we have seen some news reports that the game's development didn't quite go as smoothly as it could have. People aren't getting credited for their work, and there could have been some pretty unfortunate crunch situations, but that seems to be the status quo with any new game that comes out lately.
Yeah, which isn't to excuse it, but just to say that it's continually disappointing that we have come to expect it.
Exactly.
It's unfortunate that it continues.
Right. But it did eventually lead to a game.
It did. And let's talk about that game. Before we get into spoiler-sensitive territory, we're going to talk about presentation kind of broadly.
Because that's not a spoiler.
It's not. Now, visually, this is a very good-looking game.
Yes, it really is. I was worried, even before Samus Returns came out, I was worried about 3D Metroid on a 2D plane. And I was worried that it was going to look wonky because plenty of side-scrollers that use polygonal graphics, especially if they also use polygonal backgrounds, look wonky. Yeah. And they have weird effects to them, and I was really happy that was not the case here.
Yeah. I'm not totally in love with Samus's new design.
They do seem to have emphasized her femininity a bit.
Which is fine. It's fine for a character to be feminine,
right?
But that was never a defining feature of her. And they seem to have really kind of accentuated her hips and her stance, thinned out her legs and made her feet larger looking. And then also her gun arm is a lot smaller. It's like almost pointy looking.
Yeah.
In the early suits.
Right.
And so that was kind of neither here nor there, but kind of weird. I did end up really liking the color schemes on her new suits. I thought it was
great.
Fun
also,
and interesting.
I want to take a moment to note on the backgrounds because
very cool backgrounds.
Yeah, normally I don't even notice backgrounds in most games. Like for some reason my brain just doesn't even process it as being there. I just completely ignore it. But there are a handful of times where you'll see an upcoming boss or something running around in the background. kind of hinting at what's coming up. And it's really neat, and it does add a lot to the atmosphere, especially in the early game where some of the areas kind of feel a little samey. So having, some events and things going on in the background does help liven it up a bit.
Yeah, for sure. I really like the way the game looks. Honestly, just like, it's Metroid in HD to begin with.
Yeah.
Which is new, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And even the cutscenes look fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And it's all just animated really well. It looks really well. It doesn't run great.
There's so many load times.
There are a lot of not only long load times, but a lot of things just have really lengthy animations. Things like, okay, you want to get on an elevator. Well, you got to stand on this thing and then wait for the platform to go down.
Yeah.
And then Samus is going to turn around and the door is going to open and she's going to walk in there.
Yeah.
And the door is going to shut. And then it's going to go to your map screen and zoom out and zoom into where you're going and then ask you, do you want to go here? And then you say yes, and then you get a load screen.
Right.
It's just like, in the
also every time you save, there's a whole animation about the little save platform animating and rotating around and coming out, and just a lot of things do take longer than they need to, and I feel like a lot of it is hiding load time. But
I wonder about that.
It's especially egregious when you get to the transitions between areas, because there's a long load animation of Samus getting into the platform and it showing you where you're going and everything.
Yeah.
And then there's the transitional animation between the two areas where you just stare at Samus while she's sitting on a tram car, or when she's sitting in an elevator or being teleported or whatever. And that goes on painfully long sometimes.
And I do think this kind of and the frame rate dips pretty dramatically sometimes.
It does sometimes, yeah.
It has never been longer, in my experience. It's been a few seconds of very bad frame rate, but then it comes right back.
Yeah.
And it's usually been in the Emmy zones and whenever using a specific ability.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that just contributes to it, That said, I do think it's a very well presented game. I think it looks good. I think you put in here in the notes that the soundtrack is just kind of there, and I agree. I feel like they were trying to do that really atmospheric, like Super Metroid style soundtrack, but they didn't get that kind of poignancy in there.
I was reading one review where they had mentioned that at least they didn't reuse the Norfair theme again. However, they tried their best to recreate it from scratch in as many ways as they could.
But it's there and it's serviceable enough.
Yeah.
I do kind of have, if I can put on my tinfoil hat for a minute, I wonder, because this was the big game that came out to coincide with the OLED Switch. It was like Metroid Dread and the OLED Switch are coming out at the same time.
True.
Or I think, were they a couple days apart, or was it the exact same day?
It was within a week apart at the most, but it was really close to each other.
I kind of wonder, because I've suspected for a while that Nintendo was planning a Switch Pro, and they canned it because of supply constraints and other issues. So we've now got the stopgap OLED Switch.
Right.
And I wonder if they were planning Dread for the Pro, and that's why the load times are so long and you get these weird frame rate dips.
Possibly.
And I really kind of I really suspect that.
That could also contribute to a bunch of crunch at the last minute if they're trying to downgrade it to work on the shittier hardware.
And now, obviously, I'm completely off in speculation land in my hot air balloon filled with dreams. But it really seems like if that came to light, I'd be like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Right.
Now, granted, I feel like we've bitched. It doesn't run bad.
No,
but it's got a lot of long load times and some weird dips that you're like, what the heck's going on? It's a 2D game. Like, what's happening?
It's weird, as I was coming from... I don't remember what I had just been playing on my Xbox to this. And so I'm coming from a Series X with its solid state drives and everything that just loads stupid fast. And then I go into Metroid and it's going just chugging along between areas. And I'm like, this is the cartridge system, guys. What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get into spoiler territory. If you don't want some of this game spoiled, possibly all of this game spoiled, just pause it and go play the game.
Yes, play the game.
See if you can finish it. I dare you.
First of all,
then
there is a free demo available now. So if you haven't purchased
that's good.
it released yesterday, as of the time of our recording anyway.
Now let me ask you, have you played the demo just to check it out?
I have not, but I have learned where it ends.
Do you think the section that it has in the demo properly portrays the difficulty of the game?
I do not.
Okay. Well,
I feel like it gives you a small taste of the difficulty. Yeah. Like you might see that maybe some difficulty is coming up later, but it does not. It ends before things get difficult. So spoiler for what's coming up in our review, things get difficult. But no, there is a demo. Go play that. See if that entices you to play the rest of the game, and then if it does, play the rest of the game and come back, and we'll get into the rest of it.
Let's talk abilities, and we'll start with the stuff that's not new.
Right.
You've got a wide beam, which is similar to the Spazer in Super Metroid.
Right.
You've got the diffusion beam, which takes over from the diffusion missiles in Fusion.
Right.
And then you've got charge beams, plasma beams, wave, and grapple. Do they call it a grapple? I feel like they call it something else. Is it just they just called it grapple again? Oh, I'm mixing it up with the little spider climb ability. They call that something weird. Yeah. You get the same suits. You've got your standard suit, the Varia suit, the gravity suit, all the regular suits. They're the regular colors.
Yeah, I always love that they continue to call it the Varia suit when that was very clearly just a mistranslation.
I do like because we were kind of mentioning how they her new suit designs, right? I do like the shoulder pieces they have on the new suits. They're like half open. I thought that was neat. You've got the super missiles, but like in Samus Returns, they replace your regular missiles,
right?
As do, I believe, the ice missiles from Fusion make a return, and I like that. I don't like having multiple types of missiles. That's too complicated for me. Just give me the one missile that is all of the missiles wrapped into one.
Yeah, I don't mind having all the different things. However, the way that they did it is just so convenient that I'm willing to take it. Like it feels like it was streamlined very well.
Yeah. You have the speed booster, space jump, screw attack, morph ball, which you don't get till way into the game.
Yeah, a couple hours in, you get the morph ball. I restarted the game last night. Just to test out some sequence breaks and stuff, and it was probably an hour and a half in before I got the morph ball, give or take.
The morph ball comes with the jump, the little ball jump.
Yeah,
I feel that was separate in the game. That's
true. In Super Metroid, it's the spring ball, and you don't get it until real late in that game.
You've got your bombs, power bombs, all the kind of standard kit, right. And it does kind of, it feels a lot more Super Metroid-y than Fusion or Samus Returns did in regards to your kit and your loadout.
Right, yeah. So and then as far as new abilities, you've got your slide, which is nice because it lets you slip under surfaces before you get the power ball, or the morph ball rather. Since you don't get the morph ball for a little bit, you can at least slide under things. And
they have a lot of segments where you're sliding to get away from enemies or avoid things, and it really does add to Samus's agility. Yeah. It makes you feel real fast and snappy. I liked that. I liked how fluid the slide made things feel, and how easily the slide worked too.
Yes.
So that was nice.
Yeah. The Storm Missiles, which is a new upgraded missile that fires 5 missiles at once at different projectiles, which is neat.
The Storm Missiles feels like them learning a lesson from the rapid fire of Samus Returns.
Right.
In Samus Returns, you could switch to like this machine gun mode with your arm cannon.
Yeah.
But it was kind of weird because you sort of had to stand still for it, and it was like. It just didn't ever feel great, you know. The Storm Missiles, I think, add enough complexity to it to make it feel like it's warranted that it exists, in that it includes this automatic aiming. So it's like Panzer Dragoon style. You sweep over multiple targets, and then you let go, and it fires at them, which I like the storm missiles a lot, and they're crazy powerful.
I kept forgetting that I had them unless I was at a puzzle that needed them.
I don't know how you got through some of these encounters without the storm missiles.
I've learned since that I made the game significantly harder for myself than it needed to be. But yeah, I just constantly forgot that they were a thing.
Yeah. After that, you have the spider magnet, which replaces the magnet ball and feels kind of useless.
There are some times when it is necessary. It basically lets you climb along some walls and some ceilings, not all of them, just select ones. And it's fine. It serves its purpose, but it seems like its purpose runs out around halfway through the game. Yeah, and it just stops being used.
Well, especially after you get the space jump. Yeah. But before the space jump, they give you the spin boost.
Right.
Which is like a regular double jump that you get, but you get it right before the space jump.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, you get.
It makes me wonder if there's some sequence break that somebody's going to find that basically gives you the spin boost at the beginning of the game or something, and allows you to skip a lot until you get to the space jump. But I don't know. It just feels kind of tacked on because you have it for such a short time before you get the space jump that it feels kind of unnecessary. Like, just give me the space jump instead and skip those couple of rooms that it needs.
What it feels like is because they give you the spin boost, which is basically just a single double jump.
Right.
And they want you to use it underwater, but they immediately they make you use it underwater, and they have to instruct you that, hey, you can double jump underwater, but you do not gain height on your second jump.
Just length.
You only gain distance. Right. And they force you to learn that immediately underwater before you can even get out of the spin boost zone.
Right.
And so it makes me wonder if they were trying, because there's a pretty good amount of underwater stuff before you get the gravity suit.
A lot of underwater stuff.
It kind of felt like too much. By the time you get the gravity suit, you're like, oh, thank God. Oh, my God.
Because you're getting underwater within the first half hour of the game.
Yeah, you fight underwater. But I was like, when I fought there's an underwater boss. And after I fought him, I was like, surely he gives me the gravity suit. Surely he does. It's way after him.
Yeah. I thought maybe I had missed the gravity suit when I got to him.
Yeah. So I wonder if the spin boost was just put in there as a stopgap to kind of force you to understand how jumping works underwater.
Maybe.
Before you get the space jump.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's the only thing I can think. It just feels weirdly paced.
Right.
You have cross bombs, which are big giant bombs that explode like a cross.
Yeah, I love the cross bomb. I think it's one of the neatest new power-ups because its main purpose is just for these specific puzzles where there's a bunch of those collapsing blocks that you can't stand on without immediately falling through.
Yes.
And they're in a narrow tunnel, and you have to get across them. So you set a cross bomb behind you, and instead of it just kind of pushing you forward a little like a regular bomb, it'll launch you all the way across all those collapsible blocks. And I think that's a really neat mechanic. But again, you get them really late in the game.
Yeah. And then you have the new Aeon abilities, which are you've got the Phantom Cloak, the Flash Shift, and the Pulse Radar. Now, the Pulse Radar is great.
Yes.
It basically lets you cheat at search action games, which I need desperately.
Now, I went back and played some of Samus Returns just to remember how they had done it in that, because they did have Aeon abilities in Samus Returns, and they had something like the Pulse Radar. But it actually illuminated your map to show you the exact rooms around you. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that it illuminated the exact tiles that you could destroy to find things. And I like the way it did it in this one instead. So it doesn't spoil the map for you, but it will be like, oh, that block right there can be destroyed. You got to figure out how to get to it, but that's the one.
Because I spend a lot of time in the game firing, because if you hit a block with a missile, it'll reveal what you need to break it.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time just firing missiles at chunks of wall until I got that. Yeah. You have the Flash Shift, which is effective. It's a dodge maneuver. Yeah. It lets you quickly dodge horizontally. Right. And it becomes a very necessary component to encounters. It's if you're not flash shifting, I mean, out of everything all the time, it makes the game a lot harder.
I know.
And And I don't love the complexity of the flash shift. It's a button press and then a direction. I don't know how I would make it simpler, but it just I guess it's the same as other dodges in other games, but I'm always kind of confused on, like, I feel like I'm always hitting stuff with it. You know, it's I guess what I'm trying to get around to is I feel like the flash shift is good, but it lacks precision. And being a dodge, it needs to be precise, because when you are dodging is when you need precision.
This was another new ability I kept forgetting that I had. And so in a lot of the previous Metroid games, once you get a new ability, it basically throws a couple of bosses at you that can't be fought in any other way than using your new ability, just to kind of reinforce how it works and get you using it. But I have learned accidentally that every boss in the game can basically be defeated with the charge beam, the parry, and just jumping a lot. So however, they take forever, and I just thought that every boss in the game was designed to be just an endurance match. And I have since learned that there were just abilities that I was straight up forgetting that I had.
Basically, you were playing it like 3 or 4 Metroids ago. And they're like, no, we've added stuff since Super Metroid. And you're like, but why? And then you have the Phantom Cloak, which is just kind of useless. Basically,
it's useful early on.
It's useful in a specific situation that they craft, and then kind of never again.
Yeah, so you can use it to hide from the first few Emmys.
Yes,
but just
that's it. And let's talk about the Emmys, because the Emmys feel like the most bolted on section of the game. So for people that were following the hype on the game, the whole thing is that Samus is being hunted by this group of like robot dogs, is what I've seen everyone call them. These robot dogs.
Yeah, I like to call me Cybo Pooch.
And it's and so you enter these special segments of the map where they exist. Outside of them, you never have to worry about them. So immediately I was like, well, this is kind of betraying this whole, like, you're being hunted as you go through the game. It's like, well, you know exactly when you're being hunted.
Right.
Are you really being hunted when you get to decide on your own when you are or are not being hunted?
Yeah, are you going to be in the Metroid section or in the hunted section? Those are your options.
And you go into these zones, and basically these things just kind of chase you back and forth. The zones are designed so that you can move through them quickly and loop around in areas to kind of trick them, because they'll chase you when they see you, and then they'll eventually lose track of you.
Some of them
they get increasingly stronger abilities as time goes on. And what happens is, eventually you will make it through an Emmy zone into a weird fake mother brain that you kill, and it enables your Omega Cannon. And this is where shit gets weird. After you, in every Emmy zone, there's a fake mother brain. You kill it. You get the Omega Cannon turned on.
My favorite part about the fake mother brain is it even has the same little SpaghettiOs as regular mother brain that try to attack you. That's great.
And so then your Omega Cannon comes online for exactly 2 things. And it goes into a fixed over-the-shoulder view, and you begin rapid firing.
It goes into other M view for a second.
You shoot through the door to get out of the room, and the reason they put that in there is because the sections between when you're killing Emmys is very long, and you fucking forget
how it works.
Because the controls are totally different from the regular game.
Right.
And so then you fire through this door, because that shows you how to use your Omega Cannon.
Right.
And then you find the Emmy, you try to place yourself so you have enough distance between you and it so you can rapid fire its face shield off, charge up a shot, and then shoot it in the face and kill it and gain some new ability. Emmys have abilities locked within them.
For some reason.
It's never explained why.
Yeah.
And so, and honestly, the whole Samus is just weird. Like, originally, it's like, all right, she's like Chozo, so she can use these Chozo technologies. I guess that makes sense.
Originally, they said that she was a human raised by the Chozo.
Right. And now they're just like, I don't know, she gets from cubes and robots and a brain and whatever. She's just
just fucking anything she encounters, she's like, I got this ability now.
Yeah, she ate some Chipotle and she gained some new powers.
Now they try to explain it late in the plot of this game.
Yeah.
So there's that. They do try to hand wave that to give you some reasoning why she can just absorb any fuck thing, but it's still kind of weird.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. It's a video game. She absorbs powers. They're just trying to excuse it. It's fine.
Yeah.
My problem with the Emmy sections is that, one, they're completely, because of the gameplay differences between the Emmy sections and everything else, they have to be separate from all other types of gameplay. All the other regular boss encounters and all the other regular zones, they have to be separate.
Right.
The level design in them, they're designed differently so that there's lots of sections that loop back so that you can, give an Emmy the runaround and then get away from it.
And they also add a bunch of morph ball tunnels between the areas so that it's plausible that the Emmy could have gotten between these areas while you were taking the long way around.
I've rarely seen like upgrades and stuff in Emmy areas, like missile tanks and things like that.
But most of them you don't get until much later.
Yeah. So I guess my problem with the Emmy thing is the first time I did it, I was like, oh, this is cool. It's like this kind of cool atmospheric. It's kind of, it's the whole dread thing, right? It's like this Emmy's coming at you. It's like it feels like they're trying to do the alien thing, right? This alien is stalking down the corridor at you.
Right.
And you're trying to kill it before it reaches you.
Yeah.
And the first couple times I was like, okay, yeah, this is kind of cool. How are they going to incorporate this into the Metroid formula? And the answer is, they're not going to.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, cool. How are they going to make the later Emmy encounters different? Well, the chase is going to get harder, but
and also
then you're going to kill and then you're going to kill a fake mother brain and shoot it with your laser gun. And it's the same. I kept waiting for the Omega Cannon to like play more of a role, do something else.
What bugged me about it? What bugs me about it is like early on they're like, oh, we're going to give you the Phantom Cloak. It makes you invisible so enemies can't see you. And then by the time you get to like the third or fourth Emmy, I don't remember which one, it's like, oh, it can see invisible things.
Yeah, and then you're like, what's the point in this ability at all? Then?
And then you learn that you'll find ways that you can get around them and ways that you can dodge them, and like it can only hear you if you're making noise. Oh no, this one can just sense your presence. Oh, it can only sense it if it's in the same room. Oh, this one can sense from several rooms away now. Oh well, at least I can run away from him. No, this one shoots a projectile through walls that stuns you.
Now I'll say this. I don't think the Emmy section is bad. I think that it's simultaneously completely separate from the rest of the game and also feels a little underdeveloped.
Yeah.
It makes me kind of wonder if they wanted that to be more of the game and to disrupt more of the regular Metroid formula. But then they were just like, no, just tack it on. It'll be the gimmick, and then we'll do the rest of the game normal. The rest of the game's just going to be Metroid Fusion 2, which the rest of the game is Metroid Fusion 2.
It is, especially once you get to the second half. They are still really neat. They're neat segments of the game, but yeah, they feel very disconnected, and they feel increasingly cheap. Is my biggest problem with them.
And as for me, as the game went on, it got better over time. Because early on, they're really kind of hammering you with lots of abilities, and you're having to learn all the Emmy stuff, and the Emmy stuff has different controls, and you got to learn the dodging, and then you're going back into regular Metroid. It's a lot of back and forth, and it was a lot to take in. And on top of that, the game is just real hard. It's a hard game. It is the hardest Metroid that they have made, and I mean by a good bit.
Lot, yeah. My biggest problem with the difficulty is twofold. One, Emmys one-hit kill you if they touch you.
Yes.
And now you have parry
extremely thin parry windows. Yeah.
Right. It's just so hard to parry it.
And they changed the timing.
Do they?
Yes.
I knew it had to be something because I've successfully parried an Emmy like twice.
Yeah.
But that's it. I can't do it. I don't have the reflex for it.
The timing on it changes.
Yeah. And it's hard. So you basically just have to avoid it. You have to keep away from them.
Yeah.
And then my only other big issue with the game is the difficulty on a lot of the boss encounters is crazy.
Now this is very much a game that like many search action games, it wants you to learn how to use your new ability to defeat that boss.
Oh, I missed that part.
I know. But a lot of the time it's things where like bosses take off your health in energy tank increments.
Correct.
To the point that you might as well not have energy tanks, because for people that don't remember the parry system from Samus Returns, the majority of enemies, including bosses, will have a moment where they flash, and then you can hit the parry button and kind of insta-kill them. Well, not bosses, you got to do it a couple times, but regular enemies get insta-killed, and when they do, they drop a ton of health and missiles.
Right.
And what this means is that you kind of never really run out of health and missiles.
This is true.
But then you hit these bosses, and they take off your health by the energy tank per
Yeah.
hit. There was one boss encounter that I had full health, all my energy tanks, like 5 or 6 of them, and he killed me in 3 hits.
Yeah.
If he hit me 3 times, I was completely dead, which is fine, but like, why do I need energy tanks then? Why don't you just give me health dots or something?
And it's weird. I went back to Samus Returns to see if it was similar, and in that one, regular enemies will do like 50 damage. So energy tanks felt kind of superfluous even then. But in this one, with regular enemies, they seem more balanced. Where
they're paired back, right?
Yeah.
I will say that the regular enemies, like running through the zones, killing enemies, like exploring, is fun, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
But the bosses are just really tough. They're very, very fast. Most of them are anyway. They have very their attacks are very telegraphed usually,
right?
But if you don't know what is coming, it is very difficult to dodge that attack. And when you don't dodge, it does such a tremendous amount of damage that it feels almost unfair. It definitely feels like it's weighted against you. And so when you do eventually succeed, I assume what they're going for is you're supposed to have that great sense of accomplishment for having overcome this. And on a few of the bosses, I did feel that way. I was like, man, this felt great. I was able to learn those patterns and I was able to get past that. But there was a few bosses where I was just like, no, that felt mean, and I feel like I lucked out.
Yeah. And I will say that most of the bosses are really cool. They're really interesting. I loved the Kraid fight. That was so cool.
Oh,
what a
man.
Cool battle.
And I just did that last night on my new save file, and I had sequence braked to go get the bombs before fighting Kraid. There's a wall you can destroy in that fight that has one of those little bomb tunnels that shoots you across, and it'll shoot you right into his little fucking blowhole on his stomach. And once you're in there, you drop one bomb and he fucking dies. It's a one-hit KO with a special animation.
Like, and this is kind of my overall issue with the game is that the good parts they're fantastic.
Oh, it's so good.
It's grade A Metroid, right?
Yeah.
But the hard parts are so brutally hard, and sometimes it's just that I think a lot of it boils down to pacing, because this game does suffer in the pacing department. A lot of the power-ups and abilities you get seem weirdly spaced out. The boss encounters seem weird. Like, you'll be like, I haven't fought a boss-type encounter in like 2 hours, and then you'll have 6 in a row in like 45 minutes, and you're like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, oh, here's your new big bosses. And then it's like, now it's 5 medium-sized bosses that are all the same. And you're like, why? I mean, that's fine, I guess, but why?
I wonder if it's because they spent some time trying to make sure that these sequence breaks were both possible and rewarding.
I wonder about that, too. I mean, obviously, you can do that in a way that is... I think what I'm trying to say is maybe I would believe that, and I think maybe they didn't quite get it as elegant as they wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have a hard time knocking the game as frustrated as I was during some parts of it.
The good parts are just so good.
Oh yeah, like there were parts where I wanted to break my controller. There were parts that I wanted to like just throw the whole fucking Switch in the trash. But the highlights of the game, the best parts of the game, are so good. It's some of the best that the series in general has presented. So it's very conflicting, the feeling that it gives you.
Now, here's my thing: is it's never going to dethrone the superior Metroids for me, but that's because of the pacing issues.
Right.
I feel like if this package was just, it's like they have all the right parts here, right? Except maybe the Emmy thing. That's kind of useless. Yeah. But all the rest of it, it's all the right parts. It just needs to get just ever so slightly rearranged.
Yeah.
One
thing I also want to give it credit for is normally at the end of a Metroid game, you find yourself in this situation where you can either fight the boss or you can go and collect all the items.
Go do stuff. Yeah.
And this one does that too. You have that option, and it makes it very clear this is where the final boss is going to be, so don't go there till you're ready.
Yeah.
And you can go and just clear out the map, and it's surprisingly easy to do so too, because it tells you what percentage of items you found in an area. The map will flash in areas where there's an item to find, so it's not too bad to go around and clean up the map.
Yeah.
However, there doesn't seem to be as many random pickups as in a lot of the other Metroid games. Like your max energy tank count is pretty low compared to most Metroid games.
Yeah, and your max missile count is it's got to be 10,000 because I don't even have them all, and I've got like 120 missiles.
I think it's 255. If I remember
Holy
right.
crap!
Which is the same as Super Metroid, if I remember right.
True, that's true.
But there are some pickups. There's not a ton of them, but what's great is the ones that you can't get until the end of the game. A lot of those are so rewarding. Those are some of the most fun little puzzles, mostly Shine Spark puzzles that I've seen in the series, at least since Zero Mission, which I guess wasn't that many games ago. But still, just really rewarding and a lot of fun on some of those. So I have to give it credit for that too.
My issue is I don't think my issue is just the difficulty. I think my issue is the spikes and valleys of the difficulty.
It's fair.
I'll play for 2 hours and just, man, I'll just be having a blast. And then all of a sudden it just slams my face into a wall. Yeah. And I'm like, what? There's no lead up. You're just like, oh, I guess I'll go in this room. Oh, it's a giant boss that has 75 different phases. I have to memorize all of them. It goes into them randomly between one another, so you never know which one to expect. And the dodge windows are extremely minimal on it. And you're like, holy crap.
Did you end up finishing the game?
I have not finished it. No,
okay.
I'm very close.
That last boss, you're gonna love that.
Oh God, I think. So it's one of those things, like you said, the highs are so high, but it's just a little, I guess a little messy is a kind way to put it, because I don't want to sound like I'm hating on the game. There were moments where I did hate the game, but out of anger,
right? Yeah.
Right? But it just feels it's just a little bit messy. I will also say that the amount of abilities you have starts to feel a little complex.
That's fair.
But if you and I know there are a lot of people out there that they're like, man, I love when I hit a boss that takes me 75 consecutive tries in a row before I beat him. It feels so good. That's not me, right?
Yeah, I'm not that
if you were to say, hey, Justin, do you want to fight this boss 50 times and then feel really good that you overcame something and bettered yourself, or do you want an easy option? I would pick the easy option
one,
every time. That's just me. That's how I play games. If you're like an accomplishment gamer, you're the Kaizo Mario guy out there.
Yeah, that's not me.
I think you would love the difficulty in this.
Yeah. And then I did manage to finish the game, and I enjoyed it. Aside from the extreme frustration, but I really don't like the extreme frustration.
Yeah, I would if I could take it out. I would if I could just make it easy. Like, I mean, if I could just turn on an option that's like, hey, you take 40% less damage, that would fix a lot for me.
Yeah,
because the rest of it is so well designed.
Right. We were talking about it in the Discord about how could an easy mode be implemented, and as far as I can tell, all you have to do is reduce the damage the Samus takes. Like, take it down to 50% to 40% to 30%, something like that.
Yeah.
And then also expand the parry window for everything. Just like slow down time by not even 30%.
For everything, just expand the parry window for Emmys, period.
Specifically for Emmys, but even if they would only implement it if it was for bosses and Emmys, if they just increase the parry window by like 20%, it doesn't even need to be huge, just a little bit.
Boss parry windows always felt pretty. They felt like the widest ones for me, and I don't know if that's just perception because I'm paying closer attention in a boss fight, right? You're like waiting for it,
right? There's a couple of different so the bosses will have multiple attacks, obviously, and several of those attacks can be parried and some can't, but there's usually one or two attacks that have to be parried to finish a boss, and those attacks, oh man, it like telegraphs the parry real hard. Like it like sometimes even changes the camera angle and slows things down. So you're about to parry that, and you have plenty of window to do so. But then like the random attacks where they just like stab you real quick, you might have like no notice that there's a parry coming up. And those I couldn't do at all. I just fucking gave up on that.
Yeah. Let's talk story before we get into reception. I'll let you go through it because I haven't finished it yet.
All right. So this is just in brief. So as explained in Fusion, Samus was infused with Metroid DNA in order to fight off the X parasite. That's why it was called Fusion. And
Yes.
yes. And
What?
at the beginning of this one, there's a mysterious video that shows that there's a surviving X parasite. It was sent to the Galactic Federation. So they send their robot dogs to go check it out for some reason.
Yeah.
And then the Federation loses contact with the Emmys, and Samus decides she's going to go clean shit up because it's just what she does, I guess. And she gets there, and she gets her ass handed to her by an unknown Chozo assailant. And she loses all of her power-ups. She just has her basic power suit and power beam and her Kiki New slide. And after a few hours, you find this exposition Chozo, and he just tells you everything.
That's his name, too.
I'm pretty sure that's his name.
Hello, it's me, Exposition Chozo.
That's his purpose. That's all he does. He just shows up halfway through the game. He's like, let me tell you all the story. Please sit down and don't move.
Yeah.
And
it is weird. A game with like very little story, and then it's like, here's a bunch, and you're like, okay, bye.
So he explains to you that your opponent, the guy that kicked your ass, his name is Ravenbeak. And he tried to take back the Metroids to use as a biological weapon, but then he discovered that you killed them all. So now he's using the X parasite as a biological weapon, but also he wants to get your Metroid DNA out of you so he can clone more Metroids out of Samus, because that's how biology works.
Yes, we made it.
So then Samus is told by her computer friend, who might be Adam, or maybe she's just calling him Adam now. I don't know. And he is told that the Metroid, or he tells her rather, that the Metroid DNA inside her is awakening, which is what allows her to drain the energy of her opponents. That thing we talked about earlier.
That thing she was doing before she was pumped full of Metroid DNA, huh?
No, she was pumped full of Metroid DNA way back in Fusion.
Yeah, I was just saying she's always kind of absorbed stuff from things.
Okay, but it was always Chozo shit then.
I guess that's true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's right.
And also Metroids themselves in Metroid 2. You know what? Let's not think about it. Let's just...
And this is about the time where the game turns into Fusion 2.
Yeah, because around this time, the X parasites come back and they're fucking everywhere now.
Right, and it's such a weird shift because you're like, all right, when you start the game, you're like, okay, they seem to be giving me some traditional Metroid, but then throwing this Emmy stuff. And in my head, my first thought was, well, they're going to shift to being all Emmy stuff by the end.
That was my thought too.
They just want me to get used to the, know what, get my bearings, and then, okay, now you're in full-on Emmy mode and doing Emmy stuff the whole game. Halfway through, they just go, oh, we're going to turn the Emmys off. It's Fusion 2 now. There's X-parasites everywhere. Everything's covered in X-parasite goop, and you absorb them. Just Fusion again. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I had whiplash.
Right. Well, then they turn the Emmys back on. But
eventually.
Yeah. You just get a break. You got to get used to the Fusion again, and then they mix them up.
It's just, at this point, it feels like 3 games, 3 individually good, interesting games, all shoved into one. But when it turns into Fusion 2, that's when the game gets like fantastic. That's when it's like, oh man, this is great.
Yeah, it really
leading up to that, it's like, yeah, this is pretty good. Okay, yeah, a little too hard. All right, and then it turns into Fusion 2, and you're like, this is great.
So eventually, you meet up with Ravenbeak, and then he tells you that you're his daughter, apparently.
Okay.
But also he's still going to kill you so that he can get your Metroid DNA.
Samus doesn't have a beak or anything.
Right, she's not Chozo.
So anything bird-like.
So I tried to look this up online to see if maybe this is a weird translation choice, or if like I missed some lore somewhere.
Like his spiritual daughter.
So what I read is apparently Samus has like normal human-looking parents, but then when
I remember them from the Nintendo Power comic.
Right, and then somehow she was injected with Chozo DNA, and it's his DNA, and maybe also the DNA of another one, and maybe it was the exposition bird.
Not how fatherhood works.
Right.
It's not what that means.
That's totally she's his daughter.
I injected you with my DNA. You're my child now. That's not what that means at all. That's not how that works.
Right. So you beat Ravenbeak, and then the Metroid DNA somehow merges with your suit, and then you get a Metroid suit that's all like green and red and has Metroid looks on it. And you also get a new Hyper Beam, just like the one that the baby Metroid gave you in Super Metroid.
Right.
And so that means the planet's going to self-destruct, because that's what happens in Metroid games.
At this point, have they not realized that sending Samus anywhere means the planet is going to explode? Like that's just
maybe
their signature move.
Maybe they're just trying to destroy more planets.
I guess.
Maybe they see her as the Death Star in their world.
Yeah.
They're like, we got to destroy that. Just send Samus. She'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Why does every planet have a self-destruct sequence is my question.
It seems like an odd thing for a planet to naturally evolve.
I don't remember our planet having that. Maybe I haven't encountered it yet.
Well, Samus hasn't showed up yet. When she does, you better get on that spaceship with Jeff Bezos and get the hell out of here. Because
no, just tuck away in her spaceship with the little animals from Super Metroid. It'll be
there
fine.
You go, and then she'll absorb your DNA and get a Saturn suit.
Perfect. So then you run away from the planet while it's self-destructing, and and so there's like an animation like several hours before the end of the game of Exposition Chosobird turning into an X-Parasite, and he looks like an evil version of himself now.
Right.
And you get to the ship, and you're all Metroid form, and you're about to touch your controls, and the robot voice says, "Don't do it. You'll absorb the ship's energy, and you won't be able to launch." And then Exposition Bird shows up, but you as the viewer know it's an X-Parasite now, and it does something to Samus to take away the Metroid from her suit, and then says something like, "You can go now," and then she flies away.
This all makes perfect sense.
Because everything's good now.
Great! The galaxy is at peace again. I mean, the story's batshit, but it always is.
Right.
Half the time, we're like, is she a bounty hunter? Is she just a random person? Is she a bird person? We don't know what is happening.
Does she fight on behalf of a galactic federation, or is she a bounty hunter?
Is
and
she
do they know
employed by them?
Do they know what bounty hunter means when they wrote the story?
Yeah, because I don't know that she's ever been hunting a bounty.
I don't think she's ever collected a bounty.
Has she not been paid? Maybe that's why she's blowing up these planets. She's just underpaid. She's like, I don't fucking get paid for this shit. You can blow up the whole planet. Fuck it.
Right.
Let's talk reception.
Yes,
this has been received tremendously well. And I try not to do this, but I have some major disagreements with the critical reception of this game.
Yeah.
I've seen two things praised, and there are a lot of things to praise in this game.
Absolutely.
Let me be very clear. It is a very praiseworthy game.
Correct.
I have seen people praise the difficulty.
Weird.
And I've seen people praise it for being a, quote, return to form. Yeah. I don't know what Metroid games they played before this one.
Maybe they're only comparing it to Metroid Prime 2.
But form-wise, it is very different from what I would consider the upper echelon of Metroid games.
I think what they're trying to say is the last chronological game in the series, Fusion, was very linear, incredibly linear, and did not allow for the kind of exploration we're used to in a Metroid game. This game allows for some of that exploration. However, if you are going the intended route and not doing any sequence breaking, this game will constantly send you down one-way paths.
Yeah, all the time. So I've gotten shut into places where I can't go back to save, and I'm right before a boss I can't beat, and there's nowhere else to go. Like it locks you into zones a lot, which is useful for navigation, but it's also one of the main complaints about Fusion.
Yeah, and so I was observing other reviews and observations about the game going into this, and I did see one guy who was talking about how that's a good tutorial mechanic so that people can learn the planet and they can learn how to use their new abilities. That's basically forced into these areas. And I get that, but I feel like it hurts the replay value on the game. Like if you aren't seeking out sequence breaks, you're just going to do the same thing over and over again. And now that I have learned some of the sequence breaks, I don't know how anybody's going to figure most of these out on their own. I get the magic sequence break community just discovers these things because they're wizards or something. But for the rest of us, I never would have learned that I could jump mid-slide off of a platform. That never would have occurred to me if someone hadn't shown it to me. And that's mandatory to get to a lot of areas before you're supposed to get to them. So I don't know if I agree that it is fully back to form. I feel like it's still pretty linear, just less linear, and certainly it has less feeling of linearity than
this feels
Fusion.
like an attempt to combine Samus Returns and Fusion into the older Metroid style.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
So if that's what they mean by return to form, then I agree with that. I don't know that I feel like that's what they mean when they say it. I'm okay with the difficulty. That's fine, but give me a difficulty option, man.
Yeah, that's my thing.
This is from Nintendo. This is the same company that made the game where when you couldn't beat a level, it just go, you want me to play it for you?
Yeah.
Like, what a far cry.
Where was that? Okay, like the 18th time I died to that stupid Chozo warrior that spits the black shit at me. Where was Luigi to show up to beat the boss for me? I just wanted Luigi to show up.
I will say I find it interesting that the bosses I had an easier time with and enjoyed are the exact inverse of yours.
Probably because you used missiles.
Maybe. Let's do final thoughts because I know Guy's going to be on for the after party and he wants to talk about the game. So we want to leave him some time, although we haven't. We're way over on time, but we're going to do it anyway.
Right.
I do want to say Metroid Dread is good. It's really, really good. But it's a little inconsistent, especially when stacked up against the likes of like Super Metroid or Zero Mission.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not necessarily fair to be comparing something directly to other games, but we're a retro gaming show. The only reason we're even covering it is because this is our wheelhouse, right? And so it's a little inconsistent. My main issue still remains kind of pacing and difficulty.
Yeah.
But I think overall, if you are into very high challenge games and you don't get discouraged dying a couple dozen times at certain encounters, and you like Metroid, then I think it's a great entry in the franchise for you. If you're like me and you kind of are shying away from the idea of it being a lot harder than other Metroid games, then I think it's a very good but maybe slightly problematic entry in the series.
That's fair. Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. I would say that it's an excellent game. I didn't have as many pacing problems as you did, but I also am the type in this kind of game that I will, every time that I get a new ability, I will try to reach every possible corner of the map that I can get to.
I never do that. You would hate how I play these games.
Yeah.
One day I want to make you just sit down and silently watch me play Super Metroid because I am convinced you'll just start screaming.
But yeah, so I was finding things and also taking breaks between things to just explore. And so I didn't have as many pacing issues, but the difficulty is definitely an issue. And I think that it's my fear is that it's going to scare a lot of new players off because I love the Metroid series and I want there to be as many more Metroid games as possible. And I am worried that new players to the series will see the difficulty that this game presents, assume the rest of the series is like that because of how much praise this one is getting, and not play them. And I don't want that. I want more accessibility in games. I want games to be more open to more people. I don't want anyone to feel like they are like there's any kind of gatekeeping going on preventing them from playing a game. But the difficulty in this absolutely is gatekeeping people out of finishing this game. And so I just wish that they would patch in some difficulty options. If they could at least do that, then I would have no problems giving this game a near perfect score. As is, I think it's a really good game, a really solid Metroid game, and it's. I had a ton of fun with it, but they really need to do something to rein in that difficulty.
I mean, I think what frustrates us the most about difficulty options in games is that for a game like this, it's so easy to implement.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to, I mean, it's like toggling like one variable, like damage received.
There's literally numbers on the screen to show me what her current health is. Just change the effect on that.
Yeah, or hell, if you can't do that because of the way you programmed it, just double her health. I don't know. It's effectively the same, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So weird.
I don't know. Yeah, so that's Metroid Dread. Guy's going to be on the after party because he's very excited to talk about it.
And he wants to tell us that we're both wrong about all of this.
So stay tuned after that. I think, I can't remember if he usually phrases it this way, but I think he said, I know what I want to yell at you about on the show this week. I feel like
something
that's what
like
he
that,
said,
yeah.
but it's hard. Anyway, we have a Patreon.
That's true.
And
that was like the best segue you've had for that in a long time. That was
good,
almost regular speech.
Yeah. You go to patreon.com/retrowarriors. If we provide value to you in your day, it would mean a lot to us if you would consider supporting the show, and you get stuff for it. It's all on this site. You can go look at it. It's there. Also, we do still sell some merch on Redbubble. There's a link in the show description. So if you want to, kick us a few bucks and get like a Retro Warriors sticker or something, and you don't want to do the monthly subscription thing, then that option is there for you. Yeah. And we appreciate any support you want to give us. And we do want to thank the following patrons, starting with Lil Bunny Fufu 89.
And what is a name? A miserable little pile of letters.
Dwight Evans.
Andrew Sculf.
Lee Sparks.
Norman.
Osfincter says what?
What? Chris Hickson.
Saturn's Sad HJ.
Oh. And Justin made me buy 2 CRTs.
Are all the patrons we want to thank for making everything we do here possible. And we appreciate them. And
Absolutely.
we appreciate you for listening.
Yes.
And so, again, stay tuned. After the ending credits here, we're going to have our producer Guy on to hang out with us.
Indeed.
Anyway, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. And as always, let us cling together. Party with our producer Guy. Hi, Guy.
Hey, I'm back.
You're back. You were on vacation
survived.
it felt like you were on vacation for forever. That was the longest vacation.
It was about a month since the last time you've been here.
Yeah, well, 2 recordings ago, I was out of town for a wedding just for the weekend, and then before that, I went to after that, I went to Disney World.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
was Mickey Mouse there?
Yeah, I saw Mickey Mouse. I got super excited because I saw Piglet.
Nice.
Like from Winnie the Pooh?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I love
What did
Piglet.
you think?
He's like one of my favorite characters.
I guess
ever.
I forgot that was a Disney property. I don't know.
Disney didn't write the book, but the
Right. No, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know who all's there. I have no idea. Was it fun?
Yeah, it was super fun.
You've been before.
No.
Oh, well, that was your first time.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I bet that was very exciting then.
It was super exciting. It was a mix of me being excited about things that I've never seen before and making sure that I wasn't like abandoning my children.
It's okay. They've got like security and stuff. They've got like a lost child pin that they put them in.
Did you go on the Twilight Zone ride at Hollywood Studios?
Oh, yeah. Tower of Terror.
Man, that has been my favorite ride every time that I've gone there.
It's a great ride.
I love that.
I love it.
It's so good.
What?
Oh, no. Go ahead if you have more Disney World.
Not really. I was going to say it was super fun. We were there for 4 days and we didn't kill each other. So
that's
great.
good.
Well, that's good.
That's a good.
Well,
good step.
I'm ready for you to unleash on us
First off, I didn't say that I was going to yell at you. I said, well, I know what I'm talking about after you guys complained for like an hour about how hard the game was.
I guess I hear I'm going to yell at you every time you tell me you know what you're going to talk about on the show. That's just how I translate that.
I feel like we didn't complain about the difficulty the entire hour.
No.
We've spent most of that time praising the game. In between complaining about the difficulty.
No, I was talking about in Discord.
Oh, yeah, we did do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, when you're on your 37th consecutive try on a boss that you know exactly how to beat,
right,
but you just don't
have
physically have the dexterity
yeah.
to do it, Discord's a great outlet for that.
Yeah,
let me tell you.
That has scared me away from so many games. I don't know how I managed to push past it in this one, but there's so many games I've just dropped and never gone back to because I don't have the physical ability to do it.
Also, most of my bitching was before the point when it turns into Metroid Fusion, and that's when the game really gets good. I think before that, it's pretty good, but then after that, it's very good.
I enjoyed it before and after. I just enjoyed the game.
After you get the gravity suit and the spin jump thingy, it's it's a fantastic game. Yeah. I mean, before that, like you said, it's a good game. And I. Like, part of me wants to be like, oh, get good, but I'm not going to be an asshole, right?
That's good. I appreciate you not being an asshole.
Trust me, I put a lot of hours into trying to get good, It's like,
I've spent 35 years trying to get good at games, and I haven't yet. And if I haven't by now, I assume I am reaching the age where my ability is only going to start to decline.
Get worse.
So I don't think I'm getting good anymore. I just need easier options.
I mean, I don't mind difficulty, right? I love Super Meat Boy. I love the Dark Souls games. Like, I don't mind shit that's just hard.
I do.
You know, I'm not good at them.
Well, I think I when I was trying to come up with an analogy, I felt like me with Metroid is like you with Dark Souls. Like something about the difficulty in it and the way that it connects with you just connects with you, and you'll push through for hours when you wouldn't before.
See, I don't like the difficulty in either of those games.
It's not the difficulty in Dark Souls that I'm there for, or that I even like. If Dark Souls tomorrow is like, hey, we have an easy mode, I would instantly turn it on. Right?
Yeah.
So I like I'm not there for the difficulty, but it's a barrier I don't mind pushing through for what it provides me.
Right, and that's where I am with Metroid Dread. Like, I didn't go into it expecting to be like the hardest Metroid game, but
it's definitely what we got though.
Yeah, it was great. I don't know, something about Samus jumping around and being Samus, and I'm into it.
Yeah, I love that part.
I've tried Castlevania games. I tried, what was it, Curse of the Blood Moon or whatever.
Curse of the Blood Moon.
I don't know. Was it Bloodstained? Curse of the Night? I don't know.
Bloodstained Ritual of the Night.
There you go. That one. I tried that one.
That one was way too hard.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, that was hard. That's so hard.
I didn't think that game was hard at all.
Sarah, how much grinding did you do in that game?
A lot.
See, there you go.
No, I think
go ahead.
I was gonna say this game did a good job of showing you where everything was too. It was just a matter of figuring out how to get to it.
Right. Yeah.
I think a lot of that was kind of my issue, is that after a couple tries on a boss, like I knew what to do.
Right.
I knew exactly what to do, but it was just so hard to still do it, right? You know, it's like being like, hey, I just need you to jump over this mountain, and you're like, okay, I know what you want me to do, but what the fuck, man?
Right. Yeah, my issue was also that my reaction time isn't great. So a lot of those, even if I did notice the telegraph before a boss's attack, I was basically just like deer in headlights at it. Like, I know this is about to hit me because I can't jump in time. And the only time that I was able to avoid them is if I was already preemptively jumping because I thought something else was going to happen, and then I would avoid that thing. So a lot of the bosses ended up feeling like luck to me by the time I finished the game.
See, for me, the more I played a boss, the more it like slowed down.
Yeah, I did not have that experience. It just kept being as hard as possible the whole time. Like the 30, 40 tries into that last boss, and every single time I was like, this is still unfair. This is just as unfair as it was the first time.
Yeah, that last boss, I think I counted it because I started counting after I was like, yeah, I don't know, it only takes me like 10 tries every boss or whatever. I was like, okay, well, I don't want to be an asshole and like lie. Let me keep track of these, right? And the last boss took me 27 tries.
Yeah, that's probably about where I was.
And
that's what I find interesting, is because when you told me that you didn't mind the difficulty at all, and my first thought is like, well, he's probably just really good at it, you know, and so it's not as hard for him. But then the more we talked about it, it became clear that like, no, you're trying bosses maybe not quite as many times as me, but you know, a good amount of times. I mean, a pretty equivalent amount of tries for you. But you are the kind of person that gets that satisfaction from, hey, I was just slamming my face into this, and now I have improved myself enough to overcome it.
Yeah. Usually I don't know that I do. You know, I felt that way after the boss in the Ninja Gaiden remake. I don't know if you remember, but there was some sort of like fly vampire lady like in a church. Yeah, see? Yeah, that boss.
Fuck it.
I got to that fight like real low on health, and it's, you know, auto saved right before it. Oh my! I think I could get hit maybe twice or 3 times the whole fight. God, it took me days to beat that one, and at the end of it, I was like crying happy.
Yeah, I sold that game. I could not fucking stand it. I was so angry at that fucking game. I was like, I don't even want to look at the cover of this. It makes me so angry.
In defense of it, it was a remake of Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, and I never finished any of those either, so I really should have known better.
I will say, like I notice like whenever I have really hard boss encounters that I like barely squeak through, right? I've tried 20 times, and I'm like, oh, I barely made it. I don't know how I did it.
Right.
It gives me anxiety.
Oh no.
Because immediately I'm like, fuck, man. I mean, I fucking tried for 3 hours to barely fucking get through this thing. What's the next thing going to be like? Like, fuck, should I just fucking quit now? Like,
that's always
my wasting my time. Like, that's how I process those things. I'm just like, shit, man. If that was that hard, maybe I just need to go do something else.
Yeah, I found myself with that exact same thought the entire game. Like, every time that I would finally, like, the first one that really like made me think that I could not finish the game was the underwater boss, and by the time that I finally, like, 20 or 30 tries in, managed to finish that boss, I was like, I don't know if I should even bother to keep going, because I'm going to enjoy parts of it, and then I'm going to hit a brick wall that I can't get past. And why would I keep going if I know I'm not going to get to the end? And it just completely demoralized me, even though I had just finished that boss. So yeah, I absolutely understand that.
I think I had a run of several bosses in a row where, like, the first time it just gets smacked around, like 2 hits and you're dead.
Yeah.
The second time's a little better, et cetera, et cetera. And then, like, the last time I do it, I get hit like 2 or 3 times somehow. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I just had to do it right. And that motivated me for the next thing. And there weren't a whole lot of bosses where I just squeaked through the fight. It's just for one fight it clicked.
Yeah, I had that a couple of times. There were a couple bosses for me that I finally was able to, like, get in the pattern and either do it with no damage or with only taking 1 hit, since like 3 hits seems to kill you at half the bosses. So there was a couple of them.
Boss. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, but there was a couple of them where I had that same thing where I finally clicked with it. But even then, I was always worried that the next one was going to be the one that would kill me.
Yeah.
Oh man, so I was gonna say, like, I beat the game, and I sent you all that screenshot, and then I sat down and, like, went and just found all the items after that and 100%ed it.
Yeah,
I love that part.
Oh man, I was gonna say, like, fighting the last boss at 100%, that was fun. I beat him the second time.
Oh no, see, I went into him with 100% the first time and was like, oh god, this is impossible. But I love the clearing up the map part. I love the stupid bullshit shine spark puzzles that are just as frustrating as the bosses, but for some reason I find them so much more fun because there's no fail state. You just have to start it over.
Yeah, dude, the one where you have to, like, dash up slanted walls like 3 times in a row.
Oh, I loved that one.
Oh, dude, finding that one was really satisfying.
Right?
Like, you find the speed block and then you're like, okay, well, where can I get a running start? And you have to go back like 5 screens. Like, how the fuck am I supposed to do this? That one was really fun.
As soon as I finished that one, that was the first time playing the game that I was like, I'm going to go ahead and record a video of what I just did.
Nice. Oh, is that the video that you posted?
Yeah.
Nice. I didn't ever went back and watched it. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was because every now and then I'll remember that the Switch has that feature that'll save the last 30 seconds of gameplay.
Yep.
And that was the first time the entire time playing Metroid that I was like, ooh, I need to use that feature.
Nice.
I will say the late game traversal is, and I feel like we touched on it in the show.
Right.
Proper, but the late game traversal it's a blast. It's a lot of fun. Like, it's a fun world to get around, and it's just getting to that point.
Yeah, that's my favorite point in every Metroid
makes
game.
Makes you work, right?
All right.
Dude, I did have an issue with the Emmys that I didn't solve till, like, towards, I think, after they got reactivated or whatever.
Yeah.
When you're in that view mode and you're firing
the shoulder thing, the Omega cannon.
Yeah. Like, I thought it was just like an up or down direction thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. But no, it's like the outer arc of the thumbstick is also, like, directional.
Yeah.
Right. So I was expecting, like, to nudge up and down. Instead, it was either going straight up or straight down, and I could not figure out how to shoot them in the fucking face. Yeah,
because it uses the same aiming controls as every other part of the game does, but now it's from a different viewpoint, so the controls feel very wrong.
Okay, let me ask you, as someone who I feel had a very different, you received the game very differently than I think Saturn or myself did. Mm-hmm. Really, I think we all received it pretty differently, but your reception was markedly different. How did you feel about the Emmy sections just in general?
I kind of agree with you that I don't know that they added anything, and it felt tacked on. They were the most anxiety-inducing part of the game. You know,
for sure.
But then by the time you get to the, like, third and fourth one, you're like, oh, it's this part, the end part where you're shooting it, which is the anxiety-inducing part, is like, It's the same every time.
Oh no, for me, just trying to avoid them was anxiety inducing.
Yeah.
Oh, that never really got me. I guess.
Oh man,
like,
that got me every time.
Dude, I
No,
always
that-
felt
'cause-
hunted, and like every Emmy I had to
Every
cross
time
like
I would-
5 or 6 times.
Right? Every time I would get to a new zone, I'd be exploring, having fun, and then I'd see that fucking Emmy door, and I would just like pause there for a minute and be like, God, it's gonna be this again. I'm gonna get hit again because I'm really bad at dodging them or avoiding them, and so
they're hard to dodge. Yeah.
I knew I was gonna die like 12 times as soon as I saw that door until I found the correct path to go.
Right.
So yeah, that always every time that got me.
And it was fun doing that pathfinding.
Right, but-
and you guys were talking about I forgot already. Damn it.
Metroid Dread is what we're talking about.
Metroid Dread. Something about the Emmys that you guys had just said. It reminded me of something, but no, you're fine.
Yeah, I don't know. It just it really feels like they had like 3 different games that they're like, I don't know, they'll glue them together.
I remember the counterattacking the Emmys thing.
Yeah.
You're right. It does. It not only like there's 2 points where you can counter the Emmys, and both of them are
way harder.
Both of them are randomized too.
Yep.
So it, like I sat there and watched it because I like died to him like 10 or 15 times, right?
Yeah.
And like in the second one, sometimes it's like right when he opens his face. Sometimes there's a pause when he opens his face. It's
Yeah. It's frustrating. The whole Emmy section is just. I don't know. It has some really cool ideas.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just like, why is this here?
It reminds me a lot of Mr.
Just call
X.
it Fusion 2.
The Emmy bits remind me of Mr. X from the Resident Evil 2 remake, where he's stalking you. You're trying to avoid him. You don't want to get his attention. But just like Mr. X, once you figure out how they work and how to avoid them, it's just an annoying game mechanic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not anything that adds anything to the rest of the gameplay.
Well, and then the things they add to the Emmys to make them tougher is just
bullshit,
making them more annoying.
Yes.
And so then you're like, well, now it's extra annoying.
Yeah.
Like I felt if they had dropped off the Emmys when they got deactivated,
Right.
Yes, that would have been great.
Yeah.
You killed 3 of them. You got the experience. All right, cool. Now we're moving away, and then the fusionness can replace the Emmy parts, and that would have been fantastic. Absolutely. And it's
I didn't mention the last Emmy because I don't know if Justin has gotten to the 7th Emmy.
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, then I will not mention the dumb bullshit with that. I'll let you experience that dumb bullshit firsthand.
Man, if you haven't gotten the last Emmy, then there's another boss coming up. It's like one of those mini bosses, right?
Yeah.
Not the twins. It's one of those one kind of enemy that you fight like a bunch of different times, and each time it's kind of leveled up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last time you fight it, he's like just covered in metal, and I think I died 6 or 7 times before I figured out what you were supposed to do.
Are you talking about that weird crab thing?
No.
Oh, fuck. Well, now I'm even more upset because the crab sucks too.
Oh, yeah, that crab sucked. The one that went through like 3 forms.
Yeah, and he shoots these little dots, and I can't figure out how to dodge them.
Yeah,
Like, I don't even know.
that's the crossbomb boss.
Well, and then sometimes he'll just cram me into the corner and just fucking wail on me, and I physically
you're
cannot
supposed to
get
go
out of the
under
corner.
him.
You go.
I can't figure out when to go under him.
You can
when-
slide under him, or when he does his little like things, like they fly out of him, jump to the other side of him, and he blocks them.
Indicates to me that I can slide under him. He's so low to the ground.
Yeah, he lifts up when he does some attacks. And
Well, motherfucker. All right.
And also, when he does fire the crossbombs at you, they'll track you for a while, but before they actually explode, they pause for a second, and that's when you're supposed to jump because they'll shoot out at the 4 cardinal directions. So as
Well,
long
that's
as
not
you're
the one that gets me.
diagonal
It's
from
the
it.
one where he cascades 4 of them across the screen, and they just
Yeah.
fill the whole screen. You're like, well, fuck.
Well, they track you, so you're supposed to like guide them to someplace safe before.
No.
pause.
There's 3 different cross bombs.
Oh,
There's
I
the
don't remember
one
the
that
other
tracks.
attacks
Well, I know
then.
the ones that track. Yeah, I'm talking about the ones that come out in this cascade across in like a little stair step pattern.
Yeah,
they
you
cover the whole screen.
Jump to the other side of him, and he blocks them.
Yeah.
Oh, I tried that. I tried to get over there. All right, I just haven't fought him enough. I've only fought him like 15 or 20 times, so obviously I haven't put the fucking time in to get good.
Yeah, that's right.
Just keep on getting good. Sometime by the time we're like 70 or 80, we'll
We
definitely
will have gotten good.
Yeah. I mean, we won't be able to use our thumbs anymore, but we'll be
Oh, dude, my arthritis is so bad in my right hand now.
right.
Oh no, that sucked. That's I'm not looking forward to that.
Right.
Well, because like I play on the SN30 SN30.
Pro Plus?
No.
Pro Plus.
The little SNES one without the handles.
Oh, just the SN30 Pro. Yeah.
So I've got my like SNES Mega Man claw going, you know, with like a finger on each of the triggers and then like the A button. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
I actually switched back from the SN30 Pro Plus to my regular Switch Pro controller while I was playing this. Just because, one, the grip is a little bit bigger, so it's less pain on my wrist, and two, because it could power on and off the Switch, and I got real lazy.
I played almost exclusively in split pad pro mode because then I can map my fire button to the back trigger and turn turbo on for that to just grab, because the game has no limit on how fast you can press the fire button. It's just like, go nuts. It's crazy.
Nice.
Yeah, dude. Like I got my tip of my thumb on shoot, the back of my thumb on jump, and then like my index finger to hit dash.
Nice. Yeah, I use regular old controls.
I'm throwing gang signs at my controller constantly, basically.
Well, guy, I don't want to cut you off, but I'm going to cut you off because this can't be a 2-hour show. It cannot do it.
It's
all right.
We got like 10 seconds.
Stop before it does. Guy, thanks for producing the show and for being on and for coming back and stuff. That's great. Thanks for coming back. We thought you never would.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yes.
All right. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.